Now, there's a new program in California for low-income patients that are cleared to use medicinal marijuana, for treatments such as for nausea and cancer patients, for example, to help them eat, keep up their strength, and for people with MS to reduce muscle spasms, among other treatments that it's used for. Now, what is this program and what does it do? Well, the city of Berkeley passed a resolution requiring medical marijuana dispensaries to provide at least 2% of their products to poor residents. Now, when Fox News found out about this, they essentially flipped their collective shit. They brought on somebody named Bishop Ron Allen of the International Faith-Based Coalition and had this conversation.
Yeah, you want to light up but do not have the money? Good news, at least if you're in Berkeley, California. A new law requiring medical marijuana dispensaries to give away at least 2% of their weed to low-income patients. Here to react is recovering drug addict and head of the International Faith-Based Coalition, Bishop Ron Allen, and Mason Tvert. He is the Director of Communications for the Marijuana Policy Project. So, Reverend, what do you think about this?
I think it's ludicrous, over-the-top madness. Why would Berkeley City Council want to keep their poverty-stricken, underserved high, in poverty and lethargic? It's absolutely mind-boggling and absolutely ridiculous for Berkeley City Council to make such a suggestion and then to put this in motion. Makes no sense at all.
Mason, are you for dumping pot on the impoverished?
Well, I think that we need to look at this for what it is, which is medical marijuana is legal in California. 85% of Americans, according to Fox News' last poll, support medical marijuana. And it's up to this community to decide if they'd like to have a program that allows low-income individuals to have access to it.
Bishop, does it necessarily, do you look at medical marijuana different than you would OxyContin or any other type of medicine? Are we just looking at the connotation of recreational drugs and misconstruing it?
Well, research tells us that marijuana has the same effects on the pleasure central system in the brain as heroin, cocaine, crack cocaine, and so it's no difference at all.
Oh, there's no difference in crack cocaine or heroin. Really? Look, marijuana isn't entirely harmless, of course, right? But no study goes to actually confirm that it's worse or no different than crack cocaine or heroin. But we have more.
Bishop, with all due respect, your suggestion that marijuana has the same effect as heroin and crack cocaine really just suggests that you don't know what you're talking about, quite frankly. I mean, the fact is, marijuana is proven to be less toxic and less addictive, not only than those drugs, but than alcohol. And, if you don't like marijuana and you don't like people who use marijuana, that's your prerogative. But the fact is that medical associations across the country and more than 80% of Americans think marijuana can help seriously ill people.
In practicality, we know people are abusing the medical marijuana prescription. They're using it for recreation purposes, and doctors are just complicit, and this plays into the cycle. And that's what the bishop's seeing because he's been there himself.
No, so Kilmeade just knows for a fact that people are, of course, abusing the medicinal marijuana, right? Care to share your data on that, Kilmeade? Oh. Right, you don't have it. And hold on, this whole thing about the doctors being complicit, come on, that is ridiculous. The whole thing boils down to basically them thinking that it's a conspiracy from Obama and the liberals to get poor people high for some unknown odd reason, because really, why would anybody want to make any sort of policy to that? I don't understand. Perhaps you, Nick, could shed a little light on this one. Shall we?
Maybe. We'll see. First point I want to address is the hilarity of Kilmeade going to the guy working for the marijuana, I guess, advocacy group, I'll call it, and saying, "Why are you in favor of dropping pot on poor people?" It's like, what kind of a question is that? The one thing I will say about the actual context of the bishop's point of criminal mentality is that in the sense that because it's not legal for recreational use, perhaps you could very, very loosely and weakly argue that using medical marijuana for recreational use might make you nervous because you know that you might be violating the law, and thus, in that sense, a criminal mentality. But even then, it's really, 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 really weak. So it's just a lot of ridiculous horseshit.
Well, my two things. This firstly is the pastor saying, "Oh, kind of, he's going to encourage people to want to take more marijuana." The poor people who are actually wanting to take this medicinal marijuana, I imagine for the large percentage of them, they don't want to be having to take drugs to try and ease kind of the agonizing pain that they're in if they're suffering from cancer or other diseases. They don't want to have to take marijuana, but it's the only option that's being left available to them. So it's not encouraging them in any way. They just have to take it because it's one of the few options left open to them. And then, secondly, when Kilmeade, at least he did ask one decent question about, surely this is just a case of, what about OxyContin? You know, we allow that sort of drug and stuff. And the bishop there just completely ignored it and went on to talk about, oh, well, heroin's just as bad for you as marijuana. It gives you the same sort of high and stuff. And it's like, no, that wasn't the question. Tons of people abuse prescription drugs every single day, and that's completely legal. So what's the difference between that and marijuana? And, of course, the bishop doesn't want to address that issue at all because he knows he would get decimated on that opinion against any even slightly well-informed person on the issue.
I'll tell you what the difference is, Stephen. The difference is whenever people abuse medical marijuana, what should they do? Let's not argue that point. We're being stupid if we argue that point. But like Stephen said, people also abuse every other prescription drug out there. The difference is medical marijuana doesn't kill you when you abuse it. So if we're going to settle for drug abuse, let's go for the one that doesn't kill people. But you know, at the same time, you gotta see where the bishop's coming from. Like he's a community leader. He's one of these people that you always hear about. Like was it the Brothers Keeper initiative that President Obama has now about like raising up black community leaders to set a good example, to help address some of the problems that black communities have. And like that's the baggage that drugs have for him. Like he went through apparently a really rough time, and drugs were a part of that, and so like that's what he associates it with. We were raised in an era where medical marijuana was being treated as a possible prescription drug to solve medical problems, and now that's what it is in California, and so we've got a different context that we're coming from. Now again, that doesn't excuse what he said. Like he's still wrong. But I'm just saying, like this is a guy who, in his own mind, like he's trying to fix a problem he sees in his community. I think he's going about it the wrong way, and I think that the guy who was on the show did a really good job of trying to point that out. Like he didn't insult him. He just said, hey, well, your science is wrong here. With all due respect, it's not the same, and we have OxyContin and everything else like that has the same kind of addictive qualities with worse consequences. I mean, you guys know, people who've watched the show for a while know that I'm not as, I don't want to say I'm not as pro-pot, because if it's, if what weed advocates say about weed well, that was a really biased sounding term. If legalization advocates, if what they say about it is true, then I am all for it. But I don't know that I'm quite as convinced as some people are. But the guy's not coming from a bad place. He's just, he's on the wrong side.
Well, I tell you who is coming from a bad place. Brian Kilmeade. Look, in Fox News, did you notice all the lower thirds? You must give pot to poor people. And just the context, the way that the way Kilmeade framed the entire discussion is dropping weed on poor people. And,
it was dumping weed, which has even worse connotations. The word dumping. It comes from up on high, it's going down to poor people. I think that's what made it even worse.
Well, and apparently we need to be giving them heroin because we get better bang for our buck. Because apparently it's just growing on trees and it's cheap as crap.
Yeah. Dumping also invokes thoughts of like literally refuse. So it's designed as an incendiary term to specifically make you go, oh, they're throwing refuse on us. Ugh. That's exactly the point, is to say that you shouldn't like this. This shouldn't be a good thing because they're dumping it on you.
All right, we've left Sean out long enough. So Sean,
Yeah, I just want to point out that Jordan's totally right about the medical marijuana system it's probably rampant with abuse if you think about it. I mean, how many comedians are we familiar with on this panel that like blatantly say that they got their medical marijuana card for whatever they told their doctor they needed it for? Like, they're not really seeking a medical condition. But
how many TYT Network hosts have admitted on air that they've got their medical marijuana card and not really seeking a tradition?
Exactly, but another state that had a big problem with medical marijuana abuse was Colorado, and they actually figured out a way to solve it. If you legalize recreational pot, then the people interested in recreational pot will go buy it at a liquor store or wherever they sell I think they still sell it in the dispensaries. But if you legalize medical marijuana, people who want to have it covered by insurance or by Medicaid or by any of these programs will actually go to a doctor and get an appointment and have their needs met. So, like, his solution is the wrong solution. If you don't want taxpayers to subsidize people abusing the system, then open up the recreational system and have the medical system. It's pretty simple to me. So,
okay. Sean, like, maybe he frames the question like if Fox News was actually interested in like educating people and provoking thought, this is how they would frame it. So Sean pointed out that in 2 states that recreational pot is legal. So Fox's issue here is not necessarily with the legalization of medical marijuana, it's that it's being subsidized, and not only subsidized, like there's a requirement, X amount of it has to go for free or whatever, at the taxpayer's expense. And then the argument that comes back and says, well, it's a medical solution. Are there any other prescription drugs or medical solutions that are also recreational? Like, I feel like that, the fact that this is a recreational substance, I don't know, like, I don't know if I'm comfortable with it being subsidized for medical use.
I actually, I think recreational might be the wrong word, but there are plenty of drugs that you can get a prescription for that are over the counter, and if you get it through a prescription, then you will get it covered by insurance or Medicaid or Medicaid or Medicare. But if you buy it over the counter, you pay for it out of pocket. So, like, if you draw that distinction between the medical needs people and the recreational or over the counter people, then you can actually have a system, and this might sound terribly crazy, where the taxes you pay for buying pot recreationally go to cover people who have medical needs for marijuana and for other issues, because medicine isn't all about pot, despite what some pot people would like you to believe. And one more thing that Bishop was wrong about when he talked about, when he was asked about OxyContin, OxyContin is more dangerous than heroin. Like, it's more addicting than heroin. It's not that marijuana is just as addicting as heroin. It's that OxyContin is worse for you than heroin.